How's your roof, man? You got any roofing issues?
I got no roofing issues right now. I'm good.
But if you do, we know who to call. Tim, thanks for joining us as always, man. We missed you last week.
Absolutely. It's good to be with you guys again this week.
Yeah, Tim.
I see Jay's not here today. Where's Jay at?
We kicked him the hell out.
Probably on some,
Kicked him out.
hey, probably on some boat by a river in Lexington, probably.
Yeah. He's been on vacation for a week.
He's Juan Ponce de Leon.
hey, Tim, by the way, I think of this every time now because Gridiron Guys reminds me of the movie Gridiron Gang, so I will ask you, what is your favorite football movie of all time? Do you have one?
Ooh, favorite football movie. That's a good one. Probably The Program. Remember The Program?
Of course. Great.
Back in the day, yeah. Probably The Program. I think that was a good one. There's a lot of good ones to choose from, though, but I'd probably go with The Program.
It's appropriate because James Caan was the coach. He just recently passed away.
That's right,
I'm going to talk about that in my final take later, but okay. Yeah. When you heard the news of the Baker trade last week, Tim, what was your first reaction to that?
I was happy for Baker and happy for the Browns that they're both just finally, got this thing going. They parted ways and they found a place for Baker. But for Baker personally, I think it's probably not a great situation for him. He's in a much better situation in Cleveland, in my opinion, with the talent around him. They really struggle on the offensive line in Carolina. I know they addressed that in the draft this year, but, Baker is used to having a great offensive line and great running backs and a lot of support around him. He's not going to have, the talent level in Carolina that he had in Cleveland. So it's going to be a lot on him. And, I just hope he's healthy and ready to go.
And Tim, sort of following up on that point, he's also walking into a situation where the coach is on the hot seat and could be the first one fired. And so, I've been really hard on Baker, and I was happy to see him leave. But I think he does have an argument when you talk about 4 head coaches his first 3 years, all the different coordinators and everything else. The situation in Carolina is just as volatile as it was in Cleveland.
Yeah, I think so. He's been through a lot in his career, in his first 4 years, like you mentioned, several head coaches, new systems, injuries, he's been through a lot. He's had a lot of ups and downs. I think that's, probably the biggest reason for his inconsistency in his play. We've seen him play at a very high level, like he played at his rookie year, and the year they went to the playoffs. Then we've seen him play at a really low level, like last year. So it's, I think a lot of that has to do with, like I said, the injuries and, the changes within the offense and the system and, things like that. So, but he's walking into a tough situation in Carolina as well. So it's going to be, and, he's going to have a battle. He's also, Sam Darnold's there, who was a number 3 pick in that draft where Baker went number 1. So it's not like Sam Darnold can't play at all. So he's going to have to beat him out, first of all, and learn that system really quickly and try to get out on the field. And I hope him nothing but the best. I'd like to see him, get his career back on track and get back to the level he played at, the year they went to the playoffs a couple of years ago.
That's why I like Tim. He's the ultimate politician, just a constant answer here. So, Tim, let's get down to the weeds on this thing. What about when you're a player, you get shipped somewhere, you walk into the door and say, maybe the thing I had behind me was better than the thing I have in front of me. And then you have to realize, how do I make it here, right? Because these guys are not as good as the guys I had. Talk about that, Tim.
This could be tough, man. You feel like you won out of Cleveland really bad, and you've kind of burned that bridge, with the organization, and both sides have said a lot of things about each other, and now you walk into a situation where you're like, hey, this isn't what I asked for. I didn't want to go to a worse situation. I wanted somewhere I could go and have as much, at least the same amount of talent around me, if not more. But Baker is just kind of going to have to take a step back as far as the level of talent that's going to be around him, and it's going to be a major adjustment for him. And like I said, it's going to be in a quarterback battle with Sam Darnold, who's already been there for a season, who knows the offense, who knows the system. It's tough to walk in there and beat out a guy, who knows the system already. Who you're behind the 8 ball on that situation, and you're learning your teammates, you're learning a new playbook, you're trying to fit into a new locker room and a new organization. So there's just a lot of movement. It'll be a tough situation for Baker for sure.
Hey Tim, how about this though? How shrewd was the Browns' move to be able to shred the contract? Get Carolina to pay $5 million, then to pay $10 million, get a credit back of $3.5 million. So a net of $6.5 million to the Browns.
I don't think Tim can hear us. Tim, you can't hear us?
I can't hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Can't hear us. You want to take him down for a sec, guys?
We'll figure that out.
Okay.
If you guys want to just keep talking, we'll get back to Tim for 1 sec.
Jason to the shrewdness and G to the shrewdness of it. So the Browns are in this thing for a net $6.5 million, basically.
I thought it was 10.
Well, 10, but he's got $3.5 million he converted from salary to incentive, right? So if he doesn't hit those,
that doesn't include. that doesn't come out of the 10.
No, but I'm
they
saying
still got to pay 10.
But I'm saying even with the 10 here,
Yeah.
right? Because here they were sitting at almost $19 million,
Right, yes.
here, and they unloaded a guy, right, that the league had just devalued. I mean, you weren't gonna get much but chicken bones for him anyway, right? And so for them to be able to walk away from Baker, put him in a position where because I think things are done intentionally. They didn't send him to the best team out here. We're gonna send you where you're gonna star.
Well, they sent him to the only place that would take him.
Well, here,
because I agree with I agree with the premise what you're saying, because that was the point I made. I think I said this before with when Kyrie wanted out. Send him to Sacramento or Detroit. Don't send him to Boston.
Right.
But in this instance, I think Carolina was the only team that would take him.
So besides them straight up releasing him, and they weren't going to do that.
No.
And I don't think Carolina has a terrible offense. Their offensive line, we're not sure. It's definitely not as good as the Browns. They did address it this offseason. But when you deal with rookie offensive linemen, you never know if they're any good. Their skill position talent, if McCaffrey's healthy, is not bad. I mean, McCaffrey we know is great. He's just been injured a lot the last 2 years. And their wide receiver group is not really any worse than our wide receiver group, top to bottom, I don't think.
But what they're going to understand very quickly is, see, a lot of people still think of Baker Mayfield as that gunslinger. They think of him as a dude that's at Oklahoma that is running around and throwing the ball all around the park. That ain't Baker Mayfield, man. If you're going to play with Baker Mayfield, you got to have some strict guardrails. You can't be sending them up to the line of scrimmage with 3 plays, telling him to diagnose and get people in the right. That's not him. You need to run the ball. And I don't know if they understand the level of play action you're going to have to do, the level.
Out of the pocket.
Get them out. And the routes, you can't just be running 4 verts either. That's not a thing. Baker always, to me, not just on from the standpoint of how good he is as far as talent-wise, physically, Baker, to me, got fooled way too much. He would get fooled on some of these coverages, and then you're just like, no, you can't. Why are your eyes looking over there? You can't do that. And he would get fooled on some of these plays, and I think Carolina's going to figure it out really quickly. We think that Sam Darnold is automatically going to take that L. I'm going to ask Tim when he comes back, which is more difficult? Is it more difficult being the guy that's already there and you playing for your job, or is it easier being the guy coming in playing freer and saying, I'm going to just let it rip?
And to your point, G, in terms of Baker's abilities and what he does well, it's why I always was baffled by all the excuse made by the injuries. Yeah, he had an injury. A lot of guys have injuries. It was a non-throwing arm. But a lot of the mistakes he makes are not being able to diagnose the defense, making a poor decision of where to throw the ball. Those things, or maybe even thinking he's better than he is. I think that's always been a problem, is that he thinks he's better than he is, and I think that hurts him.
I had 2 former, Tim's not one of them, but I had 2 former NFL quarterbacks tell me last year he thinks he's Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, right, that's crazy.
And he's not. And Trent Dilfer, who wasn't part of those 2 but is another former quarterback, was terrific in saying, just run what's called in front of you, because Kevin's offense stacks plays. First down leads to second, leads to third. If you screw up first down, you've now put them in jeopardy on second down, because it was supposed to be 2nd and 6, and now we're 2nd and 11 or 2nd and 12.
Well, he's not a paint by numbers. He doesn't think like this. He's not a paint by numbers guy saying, okay, let me get to check 1 to get to check 2. No, he's a guy that thinks he can make plays. This is not Baker Mayfield in Oklahoma with the Sooners. This is not this guy. The first problem with Baker Mayfield is behind the center is this: he's too little. He can't see anything, right? How many times he get these balls batted down, right? And you have to get him outside the pocket just so he can see. That is a freaking problem, right?
So, along those lines, I had numbers in 2020, right, where he was terrific rolling left. He was best quarterback in the league when you did exactly that. You move the pocket, get him out of the pocket, roll him left. He was more comfortable going left than right. His numbers were terrific. Well, guess what? The NFL has access to those
video
numbers, and they took that away.
Right.
And I asked Kevin Stefanski multiple times last year, why is he not going left? Are you protecting the shoulder, or is it what defenses are taking away? And Kevin very carefully said, it's not the shoulder. The shoulder is fine. So what does that tell you? It tells you the defenses were taking it away. You spread the guys out on the line a little bit more. You take away the edges, and theoretically it should create things inside. It wasn't the case with the Browns. But more importantly, to your point about size, go back. We put a package together when I was filling in for Bruce Drennan on his show. We put a package together of how many times Baker was high from the pocket. Every throw down the field from the pocket was 4 and 5 yards high on these receivers.
Right. Why?
Because
he can't see.
Because he had to get it high to get it over their heads, and then it sailed on them.
Everybody wants him to imitate the way Drew Brees throws. He's not Drew Brees. And here's the thing, guys. and I've said this before, whenever somebody tries to make an argument for maybe Baker could be an elite quarterback, the people that, at this point, there's not that many people left to think that, but there were more, right? And I think about this and I say, what is the elite trait that Baker has as a quarterback? Because I could point to all the great quarterbacks in the league, and there's at least one part of their game that's elite.
If not two.
If not two, right. Many of those guys, two or more even, right? Baker, and I think people thought it would be his accuracy, but he is not accurate.
He's not accurate.
He's not accurate. His arm is good. I mean, he's got a good arm.
I was going to say arm strength.
I don't think
if I
he's
have
elite.
to give him one, I don't know if it's elite. It's
I
probably
don't think
not
it's
Josh
elite.
Allen.
No,
But
because
it's
everybody who's got bad arm strength in the NFL.
Well,
I mean,
there are some.
not
There are
many
some.
though. I mean, he's got a perfectly fine. Like that's the one category where I'd say he's better. He's like above average,
Yeah,
or
but-
fine. But he's not elite. He's not a good
but
athlete.
Before his arm strength, right?
Yeah.
And I think he can sling the ball. The problem is the conditions have to be right for him to be able to
Perfect. They have to
sling
not
it.
just be right. They got to be perfect.
Listen, and so he's not a guy that could thread between you and G right through this
No.
little honey and get this
Right.
in here, right? And for you to be able to do that, first of all, you have to. I'm gonna just tell you, in basketball, I hate little guards. I just do, right? I like big guards because they can see, they can do multiple things, they can cover
Yeah.
up for size helps counteract some mistakes here. And so in his case here, I mean, I just watched last year after year. I mean, game after game. Balls being batted down. He
Right.
can't see. And I'm like, we
Right.
can't roll you out here. It's
If you look at
it's a freaking problem.
If you look at the total of 4 years, he's thrown his second most picks. He's had the most turnovers. He's near the bottom in accuracy. In terms of athleticism, he's amongst the worst quarterbacks in the league. He's in the bottom. Outside of arm talent, arm strength, I guess, he's not only, he's in the bottom
And
of all
I
those
think we got Tim.
Yeah, because I
Tim
want to ask
available?
him about this size.
We got
This
Tim
size.
back. Yeah,
I want to ask him about this throwing angles too. Tim, glad to have you back. We was over here just getting together, talking about some of the things with quarterback play, and we got in and drilled down on some of the things that Baker doesn't do as well. When you look at it from a standpoint, people have in this league have done some things well. Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, they're the poster children for 6 foot and under quarterbacks. Tell us some of the things, some of the downfalls to being 6 foot and under when you're having to find throwing lanes and the rush is coming at you right in your lap. You know, not the outside rush, but the rush in front of you where guys are getting a little bit of push, and now you have to change the trajectory, move around, and try to see downfield. Is that a difficult thing, and what is the advantage of a taller quarterback like yourself that might not be disadvantaged in those areas?
Yeah, I think it is a big advantage for a taller quarterback, just as far as, seeing the entire field. I think when you're a smaller quarterback, I think you can see to the outside really well, outside the numbers, those comeback throws, those out-breaking routes towards the sideline. But in the middle of the field, when it's really congested and you got big offensive linemen and defensive linemen in front of you, you really have to work hard to find throwing lanes when you're a little bit smaller. When you're a 6'5" quarterback, sometimes you can see over those guys, and you don't have to really shuffle as much to find those throwing lanes to see guys breaking across the middle. But when you're 6 foot tall, you really got to work hard within the pocket to find those lanes to get rid of the football from. And if you can, and if you do happen to see them, you still have to change your arm angle to get it over the offensive lineman. Whether you got to come more over the top, you kind of got to throw it around guys sometimes with a sidearm delivery. So you really have to have a lot of the ability to throw from a lot of different platforms when you're that size, as opposed to being 6'5". It really makes a big difference. So, I think it does make it more difficult. But, like you said, we've seen guys make it work in this league with Russell and Drew, who's really, had great careers, at that size. And, it's just, you can either, throw from those different slots and you feel comfortable throwing from different arm angles and moving your feet a lot in the pocket, or you don't. And, we've seen Baker do it at times, and we've also seen him be pretty sloppy within the pocket at times.
Yeah, and to be fair to Baker, obviously he hasn't been in the league as long as those guys. However, those guys were not turnover prone, which he is. Those guys were both well, Russell Wilson still accurate quarterbacks, which he's not, or he hasn't been in the NFL. Russell Wilson's a good athlete. Drew Brees, not really as much, but Baker, even when you played, which is not that long ago in the grand scheme of things, Tim, I don't know that the athleticism from the quarterback mattered that much. I'm sure it matters, but now more than ever, you want your quarterback to have some level of athleticism, and I think he's in the bottom tier in terms of athleticism from a quarterback, don't you? Or no? Is that unfair?
Yeah, I think the game has really changed a lot, as far as, what you're looking for from the quarterback position as far as athleticism. Back when I was playing, it was more of the big 6'5", 230, 240-pound pocket passer who was just going to stand in there and take those hits. The Troy Aikmans, Drew Bledsoes, those type of guys that were just going to, be those pocket passers. And now the game has really evolved into, being able to use your legs as a quarterback is such a weapon. And so it makes it so difficult on the defense that, that now teams are really looking for that. Like, okay, he can throw from the pocket, but can he create? Can he make plays with his legs? Baker, he was kind of a mobile guy coming out of college. He wasn't much, he wasn't a great runner, but he could run a little bit and create some stuff with his legs. But, I don't know if it's been due to injury or whatever, but we haven't seen a whole lot of that over the last couple of years with him. So, I think that, it's just the position is certainly different. It's the offenses are different now than they were 15, 20 years ago. And you're just looking for more of a dynamic playmaker back there who, that Kyler Murray type of guy who's, can throw from the pocket. He's a smaller guy, but obviously can, he's unbelievably dynamic with his legs as well. But, Baker's not going to be that kind of guy. He's going to be more of a pocket passer, but he's trying to do it, in a 6-foot frame.
So I can say this, and then to Drew Brees and Russell Wilson, I don't know if it's the fact that they played in the Big Ten and bigger linemen. They may be used to seeing bigger setups. I'm not sure what Baker was seeing at Oklahoma, but I will tell you this, right? I'm just a proponent of a person being able to see the entire field so we don't have to manufacture. We have all these weapons, Tim. We have all these weapons, but they're no good to us if we can't utilize them. And if your deficit as a player allowed me not to be able to use all my weapons, then you're not helping me. Talk to me about being able to deploy all these weapons we have.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You can have all the weapons you want, but if you're not utilizing them the right way, if the quarterback can't see them or get them the football, then it's useless. But it's been it's been so inconsistent with Baker. We've seen him do it at times, so it's in there. But we've also seen him be just really inconsistent with his mechanics, his accuracy. His decision making, just things like that. And I'm not sure what the cause of that is. I don't know the situation that well, but just watching it as a fan, watching it on TV, you can see sometimes his footwork gets out of whack, which causes the high errant throws, missing guys down the field. He's missed some deep balls, that were there, especially when Odell was around. It's just been a lot of inconsistency, and I think it's due to a lot of times just fundamentals and footwork. It always goes back to the basics as a quarterback when you're looking to be more accurate and those kind of things. It's just getting your feet set, it's getting your eyes in the right spot, and not trying to throw off your back foot. Do all the things that you're taught as a high school quarterback. Sometimes you get away from those things when you get to the NFL and just focus on, I've got a strong arm, I can make that throw. But you can't make that throw without your feet set and things like that. And he gets kind of loose in his mechanics at times.
On top of everything else we've talked about, they're still not done with Baker because they have to face him week 1. I'm going to operate under the assumption that Baker's going to beat out Sam Darnold. I don't think Sam's very good. I think Baker's going to win that job. Now that he's going to be in day 1 of camp, he's going to win that job. So now you have to prepare to face the guy who you've had. It's such a mind-blowing situation, really, that the Browns are in. But really, I want to pivot that just a little bit. And right before we brought you on, Tim, I said, I thought Kevin Stefanski did a marvelous job his first year and to basically be able to install his system over Zoom without any extra OTAs, without any sort of mini camps, all video. I thought his first year he was excellent. But it's my personal opinion. I think this could be his most difficult coaching situation yet. You have to heal the locker room from Baker. You have to heal the locker room from Deshaun. And as I said, there's 53 guys in there. I'm guessing at least 1 or 2 of them probably don't really want the guy there, given everything that's swirling around him. You don't know who your quarterback is day 1. Josina Anderson's report today, the Browns have operated on the assumption that they were going to have sort of clarity on this by the start of training camp. That may not be the case. As a head coach, how do you navigate this when you're not trying to get 1, but 2 new quarterbacks to your system ready to go by the start of the season?
Yeah, I think you make great points. It's by far his toughest coaching challenge so far, with everything that's going on with, getting rid of Baker, bringing in Deshaun, trying to get these new quarterbacks up to speed in the new system. It's just a lot of moving parts that he's going to have to manage this season. And, it's going to be an ongoing thing with Deshaun. No one knows how long he's going to be, how many games he's going to miss right now. So it's just going to be, getting a backup quarterback ready to play kind of, it's going to be a different looking system when Jacoby's in there than when Deshaun is in there. Deshaun's a guy who's going to make plays with his legs. He's going to push the ball down the field a lot. He's going to be aggressive. With Jacoby, I think it's going to be more of a system where obviously we're going to rely on this great running game. We're going to rely on our offensive line. We're going to ask him to make some throws off of play action. We'll take a shot or two here or there, but for the most part, it's probably going to be a ball-controlled offense as far as the passing attack goes. So he's going to really have to, from week to week, depending on when Deshaun is going to be in there, adjust these game plans and get guys ready to go. So it's going to be very, very difficult for him. And also managing the locker room, like you said, there's going to be some guys that are upset that Baker's gone. Not everyone in the locker room wanted Baker to be out of there. A lot of guys believed in Baker and they wanted him in the locker room. Some guys didn't. So it's just a mixed bag right now that he's going to have to manage, and it's going to be an ongoing thing for the entire season, I believe.
Tim, the reason I love having former players on is because y'all can educate the audience, give them something that they don't really know. There's a lot of misconception out there about the way offenses run. People, I've literally had people come up to me and say, your playbook is trash. And I'm like, well, technically, you put in key concepts and then week to week, you put in brand new plays that you run based on what the other team is doing, right? What you see on film.
Right.
Can you kind of give, the fans a little insight into, we've been critical of Kevin Stefanski, but, there is no master playbook that you memorize and then you just don't put anything new in or put wrinkles in. Kind of tell them the way the progression works in terms of starting the season, starting with one playbook and some concepts, and then what do you do from week to week in order to round out your plays?
Yeah, for sure. I think, when you first get to training camp, OTAs, mini camps, all that kind of thing, you do put in, your base plays. This is our system. This is how we're going. This is our terminology. This is our blocking schemes. This is our base, packages, our play action, our route concepts we're going to run out of, certain formations, 3x1, 2x2, whatever it is, empty sets, those kind of things are standard. You're going to run those week in and week out with the formations of personnel groupings, all that kind of stuff. But from every week does change once the season starts based on the team you're going to face. You've got a team that's, going to be aggressive. They're going to blitz a lot. They're going to play a lot of man coverage. Well, you're going to add some new wrinkles to that, especially down in the red zone. You're going to try and get some crossing routes, some picks, some wheel routes, all those kind of things. The playbook is always changing throughout the year. Like I said, you're going to run your basic stuff. That's always going to be there with the addition of some new stuff based off what you're going to see that week, what you're anticipating. So guys have to be flexible with that. Guys are used to it. No matter what system you're in, it's going to change a little bit week to week. We're going to add a few things. We're going to take some stuff out. What we did last week may not be good this week. So, and guys watch film. They're going to say, well, this has been their tendencies over the last 3 games when they get in this set. They like to do this play action. They like to take a shot. They like to do this. So you have to do those tendency breakers as well, because when they see something on film that you do consistently, they're going to jump all over it. So you have to have those wrinkles in there where you're doing something different as well. So it's always changing and ongoing throughout the year.
Man, that's a ton of stuff. Great insight. Hey, Tim, Jason referenced the fact that the Browns really have to get 2 quarterbacks ready, and they're both new. So if you were Kevin Stefanski and the offensive coaching staff, and it's day 1 of training camp, and there's still no resolution on Deshaun Watson's suspension, how would you do it? I mean, because Deshaun's going to be your guy long term, but he might miss 4 games, he might miss 0, 8, might miss the whole season. Without knowing the resolution, if you were the coach, how would you split up the time between Watson and Brissett?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And, the biggest hurdle there is, Deshaun hasn't played football in a year, so you want to get him those reps as well and kind of get him up to speed. He needs to learn this offense because he's going to be your guy going forward, obviously. But at the same time, you got to anticipate he's not going to be there for, X amount of games, whatever that's going to be. So you got to get Jacoby ready too. So it's a very, very difficult thing. I wouldn't want you to deal with what Stefanski's got to deal with this year with this team, with all the moving parts. But if I had to make that decision, if it were me, I'm trying to get the guy ready who's going to be under center week 1, and I assume that's going to be Jacoby Brissett. So I'm going to lean more towards getting him, ready to go and up to speed in the system and getting as many reps as I can possibly get him, because you got to get him ready to go. And if he's going to be the guy taking the snaps, and he has to be, you have to think of him as your starter. He has to feel like he's a starter, and go ahead and prepare him that's going to be the situation.
So, Tim, let me ask you a question. I'm going to get down to the weeds here. You talk about when Baker's making the swap to Carolina in the first game of the season is obviously going to be a good matchup between the Carolina and the Browns. So, you ever been on a team where you got players that you play with that don't like you? And so I think there's a number of people on the Browns defensive side who will be looking to tee this thing up against Carolina. Talk about that when you have some animosity in the locker room sometime and the guy lining up from you, or whether it be basketball, football, like, I've been waiting on you. You're the guy.
Oh, yeah.
You're the guy.
Absolutely.
I've been waiting on you.
You know that. Yeah, I know what you're saying. That stuff goes on. Even in training camp, you get to talking back and forth with the defensive backs and, some of the guys on defense. And, you just get sick and tired of facing your own team in training camp. So there's a lot of smack talking going on. And, those defensive guys are just, they're just wishing you didn't have that, that orange jersey or that red jersey on where they're not allowed to hit you. They want to tee off on you sometimes because of all the trash talking back and forth. Now they're going to get their chance. And, if, we all know Baker likes to talk a little bit in the media. So I would imagine, going into that game week one, there's going to be some things said from both sides. I think Baker would probably say some things that's going to fire up the Browns defense. And, I know the last thing I would be doing if I were him was trying to, piss off Myles Garrett. I'm not saying a word that week. I'm going to be complimentary. I'm not saying anything to get that guy motivated, man. So, but it's going to be exciting. I can't wait for week one. It couldn't have played out any better for a fan, just, as far as the drama goes, just wanting to watch a game like that has so much on both sides, especially in week one. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Tim, speaking of Myles Garrett, we know, like yourself, Myles Garrett loves basketball as well as football. He showed up at Cavs summer league, and he was warming up with the guys there. He played in the NBA Celebrity All-Star game. What do you make of, obviously he's one of the most amazing athletes we have ever seen in professional sports. What do you think of his basketball game? And it's hard to tell. But do you think he could have possibly been a pro basketball player?
It's hard to argue that he couldn't. He's such a phenomenal athlete. If he was training his body to be a basketball player instead of a defensive 280-pound defensive end, I think the skill sets are there. He's got a nice jump shot for a big guy. He's obviously explosive off the floor. He's got all the skill sets you would want. I wouldn't want anything to do with that guy down low trying to stop him. He's going to be able to move you out of the way pretty much wherever he wants with his size and strength. But I wouldn't put anything past Myles Garrett athletically. That guy is just a freak of nature. If he wanted to be an NBA player, then I'm not going to tell him he's not going to be an NBA player. That's for sure.
Tim, I can tell you this for a fact, and you as a former basketball player, you know this. There are more people that play football that can convert to basketball than it is basketball players that can convert to football.
Yeah,
and I can
for sure.
And I'm not just talking about rec guys. These are guys that can play. The things that you saw with Myles Garrett right there, that's unbelievable, right? That's unbelievable for a defensive end to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And then you throw in people like Chris Carter that we've talked about.
Yeah.
There are a number of players
T.O.
that can do T.O. that can just get out and get it done, right? So
Baker Mayfield.
Talk about Tim this. How hard is it to do both things? Because when I look at Myles Garrett there, is he doing the Deion double play here? Right? Is he doing, can I do me a little football? Do me a little basketball?
Yeah.
Right? When is the next double play going to be taken up by somebody in this country?
Man, I don't know if it's going to happen anymore. I don't know if these coaches are going to, what these guys are making now. I don't know if they're going to pay Myles Garrett whatever they're paying him and let him go play basketball as well. Just the risk of injury, blowing an ACL, rolling an ankle, whatever, playing basketball. That's the last thing you want with, a guy like that. You want him available to you every Sunday. But, man, it sure is fun to watch his clips when he puts them on Instagram or whatever. It's just, it doesn't look possible for somebody that big to jump that high. It's almost like a Zion Williamson type of thing. Zion looks like a big defensive end too out there. So it's just, you're seeing a freak of nature when you see a guy with that much power and speed and size that's able to get off the ground like that. It's unbelievable.
You think fans should freak out when they see him doing it in the warm-up line with the Cavs?
Oh, I bet they can't stand it. They cringe every time he posts those videos.
Definitely scared.
He's jumping up there doing 360s and doing all that stuff. I'm sure they can't stand it. But, Myles loves it. It's what he does in the offseason. So what are you going to do?
Tim, great stuff as always. We appreciate you taking the time. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
See you, buddy.
Good to see you.
Thanks, Tim. Great Tim Couch with us. Always great to chat with him. We now go right back to